We're at Randy Ryan's house here, and he's going to show us his engine collection. So let's get at it.
All right. Well, let's just start out with this M&M where we were at. This is probably the rarest engine I own. I bought it on eBay, but I did have to restore it. It was missing some parts. It's interesting because it has what's called a piston valve transfer. That means the piston is hollow, it has a hole in the top. There's an inner piston that actually looks like a valve head in a valve seat. And on the downstroke, the skirt of the piston hits a stop in the case and pulls that inner piston down, and the fuel air transfers up through that. This is also a drum valve. This is not a side port, it's a drum valve. And you'll notice it doesn't have a needle valve. It has this little crank looking affair. And it's interesting because it has a pickup at the bottom. It has a flat on the side of this brass tube that goes to the bottom, and then a 20 thousandths hole that opens through it, and then another one through the spray bar. And it's amazing how finely you can tune that mixture within about 45 degrees. That's the travel you have. Another thing interesting, this was a 1939 model, 38 model. The 39 model went back to the side port transfer and had its common piston. But this is a choke. Something really handy when you put these things in a cowl somewhere. But the interesting thing about this is after the fact, I bought it. I paid a lot of money for it before it was restored. The people were so impressed with my tenacity and voraciousness for the engine that they had some other stuff on the internet, on eBay, that they took down. And when they sent me the engine, she sent me a message and said, "There's a large box coming." I said, "Why would the engine be in a large box? You can put this, in a matchbox." Well, when it got here, there was a Buccaneer B kit and a bag with an ignition coil, a brand new plug, and a set of points for this engine. So I restored it, and I did an article for Engine Collector's Journal with Tim Daniels. And a friend of mine here in Lansing, Bob Edelstein, saw the article, and he called me. He said, "I got what you want." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I bought out M&M from the family, what was left of the engines." So what we find in this box is actually, sadly but happily at the same time, this is all the M&M stuff. And there were other engines as well. Here's an experimental twin. That's an experimental 6-cylinder, no less. They ran that on a chamber with compressed air because it won't draw on its own. It won't transfer on its own.
I thought all radials had to be odd numbers.
They don't necessarily. This is an experimental twin based on that same crankcase, the M&M, but you'll notice the cylinders are different. It's basically a back-to-back 237 model 29s. So this one, it will probably never change from what you see. This is how it was left at the factory after they were done playing with it. You'll notice it's mismatched. One is this is an iron cylinder, this is a steel cylinder with aluminum head. Who knows why they did that? I think a lot of the times when they did prototype work is what we got on hand. If we can match it up, we'll do it. So in amongst this stuff, something that I was even unaware of was an engine called the M&M B, and it's a 19. That's another 29 that I'm going to restore and sell to kind of offset some cost here. But come on, where are you, bees? This is a later model 19. This was kind of an experimental one. You'll notice that the stampings and stuff are just kind of haphazardly done. But this also came from the prototype shop at M&M. So it's got again, whatever got collected and put together, that's what they did to try whatever they were trying out at the time. But the B is a very cute little engine, if I can find it. Come on, where are you? Okay, well, before I go on to that, I'll go on to this. The first M&M I showed you was a 38 model, and that's the piston valve. This is a 39 model. It's also a 29, but rather than having the piston valve, it has a solid piston, and this aluminum sleeve has flutes in it that open up to matching holes in the cylinder. So it's a full radial bypass, much like German Weber diesels. So this is another very rare engine. This is the only one I've ever seen, actually. So it was quite a score when I got this stuff. And I'll find that there's several of them in here. What's down here? Parts. These are cases. These are original cases. That engine. Some of them are damaged. That's repairable. All parts that came out of the factory. Then I do have other case castings here that were done by my friend Bob and a friend of his who has since passed. But these are centrifugal investment castings. And that tub that I showed you out there is a centrifugal caster. And so I'm going to be doing these, but I'm also going to be doing, you asked about a ball.
Right.
I'm going to do a half dozen sets of ball castings, for which I will receive an original brand new ball. So
You know how many were made, right?
I don't know how many were made, not many.
Less than 18 of them.
Yeah.
You know, let me tell you the story about the ball engine. My dad had number 13, and Ball worked for Ford. He was a tool and die maker for Ford, and he made those on Ford's time. And I've seen the reproduction Ball engines, but I've never seen an actual Ball. So if you got a real one, I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Well, the parts Bob came across, and it was here in Michigan too.
You know, my dad's from Michigan. That's why I want to see it.
I can get it. He got those a complete ball, and then a set of all internals for 6 more. All the internals. So what he asked me to do is cast 6 sets of cases, do the machining, and he would give me the internals to finish one. So this is the EDB. I mean the M&M-B I was looking for, and it actually just says B on the side case. There's a couple of them in here, and they're in different states of completion or incompletion, whatever you want to say. And these also came out of the prototype shop. The brown tags are the original prototype tags that were on them, and Bob bought these from the family, the surviving daughter that had, this was what was left.
McDonald?
I'm sorry?
McDonald?
Mary.
No, Bob. You said Bob.
Oh, Bob Edelstein.
Edelstein.
Bob Edelstein. He's a free flighter. He was actually, he's retired now. He was the general manager for Waco Aircraft up until he retired here 15 years ago. But anyway, that's, without going through any more of this stuff, that's the M&M story. And my intent is to duplicate the B's, build a number of those, and then the 19 version of that I showed you the cases for. And those will be, I'll build one of each for myself, and then probably sell off I'll build a dozen and sell off 11 of them. When that does, you don't make any money in these things, but you offset shop cost.
Right.
That's all you do.
We got 7 viewers right now, live viewers.
7 viewers, wonderful. Well, if we want to turn back into this for a minute, I can show you another couple interesting projects that I came across. This is an Olson Gold Seal. Designed and built by Erwin Olson, but also in concert with a guy named James. I don't know his first name. But what was interesting about this, the engine, it's got some stains. When I got it, it was covered with just nasty black goo. And there was some rust on the cylinder, and it was missing a stack. So I looked it over, and like I say, it was like new. I degreased the cylinder, and I just started putting navel jelly on it. And I did, I don't know how many, 30 applications until it actually came bright. The stack was originally stamped aluminum. Well, I thought I could either spend a whole bunch of time making 4 dies to do the 4 hits to make this stack, or I could machine it out of billet, which it is. This is all machined out of billet and hand finished, hand contoured and finished. It's quite a rare engine. This is quite a rare engine. This is the one they call the Beehive, and this is the second model. So this is about 1937. Some other interesting bits in here. An Avion Mercury. This is 1.09 cubic inches. And if you're familiar with the Forester 99, it looks like a great big Forester 99. Even the intake is shaped like a Forester. This is all magnesium. Unfortunately, someone sandblasted this. So one of my pet things to do is try to restore original finishes. So I'll have to go in and take a very light cut off the cylinders and so forth to bring back the machined finish. You can see this was a machine surface. It was sandblasted. It was actually turned against the top of the flange here. So this needs some work, but it's in very nice condition. Here's another not quite so rare but very interesting engine. This is a Barker Manual-Matic. This is magnesium as well, but this one hasn't been sandblasted, so it takes on that typical black color of magnesium. But you'll notice this funny looking stamped stack with a bail on it with a couple screws in it to hold it on. Mm-hmm. And the one reason I jumped on this when I bought it was because the stack was on it. 99% of them don't have the stack, and I couldn't reproduce that stack as easily as I did the other one. So this was kind of a neat hit, and all the enclosed points and so forth. This is a pacemaker. Pacemaker 61. This is the second model. This one needs some pretty immediate attention because the magnesium is really starting to go here. The one thing I haven't found is a treatment to brighten magnesium.
Crock pot?
Pardon me?
Crock pot, antifreeze?
It won't brighten the metal. This is the metal. Magnesium just turns this pukey black, and eventually it'll just turn to dust if you don't do something with it. My dad relates a story about some of the trailers that during World War II that were made of magnesium. If you light this on fire, you can't put it out.
Right.
It produces its own oxygen.
Right.
And so they just sit and burn. You couldn't put them out; they'd burn till they were gone. Oh, let's see, something else kind of neat. Ore 65. I got a couple of these. I have this kind of thing for these big old high performance engines. So I got this. I've got a Ball. I've got a Hornet. I've got Orwicks. And this is. I actually have 2 of these. One from my dad's collection and one that I had purchased myself. And then, here's a neat one. This is what they called a supercharged Thunderbird. It's a 60. It's a rear drum valve. But you look at that and say, well, what's supercharged about that? Well, inside here, I should have brought up the other one. Inside here, on the end of the drum that rotates in the intake, it has the intake timing port that goes into the cylinder, but in front of that is a turbine wheel. And the idea was that was supposed to help draw fuel. But we all know a prop in dead air does what? Nothing. So that's what it does. But it's interesting, and this is as factory. They came up polished, very attractive engine. Mm-hmm. I have another one downstairs that came with a box of junk that I will eventually restore. It needs a lot of help. Another interesting story. This is a E-model Baby Cyclone. It's a 35. And what's interesting about this is I was in an antique shop over on Plymouth Road, and I found the cylinder, the piston, the bypass cover, the crank, the piston itself, and an envelope with 2 brand new connecting rods in it. And on it, it was dated Rush. 2 connecting rods, 50 cents, $1, and it was dated June 1942. So somebody was on their way to get to Nats. Okay? Well, the crankcase of these were originally zinc. I don't know if you know, but zinc rots. It literally rots and crumbles. So I found an aluminum reproduction case that I had to machine. So all the lower end is not original. The prop washer is not original. The prop washer was zinc as well. This drive washer is original, and it is zinc. What happened with the prop washer was it had been tightened so much it was dished. So I thought, oh, that'll be a piece of cake. I'll just put that in the press and I'll flatten it. I put it in the press and it just turned in about 7 pieces. So I turned an aluminum one. The tank, there's actually a reproduction by Woody Bartelt over in Galesburg, Michigan, and it took me a number of years to put everything together to build up this engine, and it's really very nice. So there's more invested in the tank than there is in all the rest of it. But it was interesting the little bit on the receipt and the little envelope with the con rods. Oh, what else of interest down here? Here's a Bantam 16. This is the first engine I ever built. I built this on an M-head Bridgeport and a 1660 Lodge and Shipley lathe. You talk about turning a 1032 thread on a 1660 lathe. That's what I had, so that's what I did. This one, it runs, but it's kind of sick. But I thought for a first effort, it was pretty good. Here's one that's this is one I've always liked. This is an Edco Sky Devil, but it's missing the long prop extension and spinner. It's actually about that much longer with the proper spinner and so forth on it. It has all the earmarks of an original, but I think it's a repro. It just looks too new. But all the little details, like these 2 little scallops, the repros, they flatten those out. Now, I don't know. I got it at a good price. I'm not going to complain about it. Very interesting engine. Here is a Hornet. Another one of those high performance type engines. They always use these same set of points. The McCoys, all of them use this same type of points.
Chevy.
They're basically a GM point.
Yeah.
And the same. You could probably take this timer off here and put it on, interchange it with almost any of the high performance engines at the time, even the foreign knockoffs. And if you go through a lot of these old engines and hold it next to a McCoy 60 of the same era, the same vintage, man, it reminds me of the old Flying Models glossary of modeling terminology. and one of them was empennage. You know what the definition of empennage is? The definition of empennage is what you change on a nobler to produce an original design. Well, that's like these and the McCoys. They all had their little porting tricks and so forth. But
Matter of fact, you can take those points off and use it in your pan head.
yeah, that's right, you can.
It's just out of 6-cylinder Chevrolet.
This is Orwick 60. This now is not a copy. This is one hot number. Excellent power, but also a little too pricey to use. So I picked up 2 of these and a 29 and sold the other 60 off and made money. So I got a really good deal on that. Another interesting engine here is this. This is a drone diesel.
Yeah.
It's a 29. This is American made. And it's fixed compression. Most of the diesels, you notice, will have these, the British call this a Tommy bar. What it is a screw that pushes on a contra piston, and that's how you vary the compression ratio. Well, this is a fixed ratio. And when these were produced, this originally had a tank on it. Somebody cut the tank off. It was kind of like some of the things you buy now where here it is, it's good, but if you want it to be better, buy this. So you could buy this and it would run, but then you could buy a variable piston head for it, a variable compression head for it, and it was better. But my dad had one of these. He flew a great big 6-foot Buccaneer free flight with it, and I always liked it, so I got one. And let's see what else maybe down here. Oh, here we go. This is a Vivel 09 diesel. This one is a repro I built. Several years ago I came across this original. So I have this little pair. It's kind of neat to have them sitting side by side. I've run this one, runs very good. I haven't run this one. But when I saw that, and I got it for a good price, so I bought it. Not that I need it, but I guess I don't really need any of that stuff. So. And last but not least in the case here anyway, this is an ED Hunter. It's a 21. And this engine came to me with 3 other Bones engines, and it was literally trashed. And I did repair it with some of this low temperature rod, which unfortunately discolors. But all the spinner and everything had all been marred and gouged and so forth. So those have all been lightly refinished. I had to make I made the needle valve spray bar, the Venturi, found the screws and bought the correct cheese head. These are cheese head screws. And have run it. It's a very good running little engine. They're actually on my Facebook, and my photos are pictures of this in its initial state and then its finished state. So that's what's to see up here. This is I have over 600 engines, so I don't think we'll go through the rest of them.
No, but I'd like to see your ball. We'll end up on the ball.
I'd like to see the ball. All right. Well, we'll have to go downstairs to see the ball. See if I can get on the ball here.
We've been running almost a half an hour now.
All right. Well, let's go down there.
I don't want to bore these guys to death. Down into the mad scientist workshop. I don't know where he went, but
I'm back here. Let's see, where those are rockets. K&B. Cox. Come on, where is it? Anderson.
got all kind of weasel wazzles. Doohickeys and whatchamacallits. Hey guys, if you like this program, give us a thumbs up.
Excellent. Randy, you must have big lathes. I got 2 small lathes. That's it.
I have this same arbor press, but it doesn't look as nice. Mine's pretty grimy.
That one was pretty beat up when I got it. Well, I'm going to have to...
Reconnecting. I guess we lost the... Well, thanks a lot, Mike, for that super chat. We're here with Randy. I'm going to end this broadcast because he can't find the ball, but he's going to tell us about this airplane here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is a Paramount Commander. When my father returned from the war, World War II, in '45, this was his first project. This is the airplane. This isn't a repro. This is the airplane he built in the winter of '45, '46, with this mighty midget on it. I've duplicated it. This was in his basement, and he flew it up until about 1972. He taught me to fly rudder-only escapement RC with this airplane when I was 7. And in '72, it had there was an escapement failure that caused it to crash, and so it hung at Dad's basement up until last fall, when I finally got the nerve to ask him if I could take it and restore it. And he said, "Please take it and restore it." And so I worked all winter on it. It's all covered with silk. It's now got Spectrum gear in it, and this took first at Toledo this year in Old Time RC Assist. The intent is now, it's rudder only, but I'm going to put a jury elevator on it, just a trim tab, because I want to have something. And I'm going to set up the engine with ignition blip on a cam on a servo, so I can have a bit of throttle control, because the way they flew then, you flew upwind. When it quit, you glided around, and hopefully you judged it well enough that you could land somewhere within a quarter mile of yourself. Well, I want to be able to go around if I have to, and so I'm going to set this up with an electronic ignition system, and I'm going to just blip the throttle, just like they did in World War I aircraft. It's 6 foot. Let me get this. This was a little accompanying board I did. It got wet in the truck on the way back from Toledo, but that's the airplane the summer he finished it, 1946. Beautiful, beautiful airplane. This is his AMA 8754. He still has this number, which I'll maintain when he's gone. He's 95 now. He's blind. He can't do anything else anymore. But you'll notice that the lettering and so forth on the rudder is kind of crude. It was all hand done, and I actually copied it from the pictures before I stripped it, and I tried to duplicate everything as he had originally done it. And there's pictures of it stripped here. You can't really see this very well, but here's the Commander and the Buccaneer I talked about with the drone diesel. And you can't see it, but that's me in about 4 years old in my underwear.
Wow.
And here we are at the hobby shop in Farmington. Our club was the Michigan RC Society. There's the airplane right there. I'm standing over here with an original control line biplane, foam wing biplane I designed with a Torp 19. Dad and I have probably a third of those airplanes belong to Dad and I. That's my sister. She's 70 now. And here's the airplane when I got it home. You can see the left tip is gone. The nose had been modified. He'd sawed it off and just put a firewall on it, and I returned it to the cowled engine. But this is a real labor of love. So I took it down to Toledo and won first with it. Now the intention is, we have some guys lined up in the signal seekers with drones and video recording equipment. We're going to have Dad over there and interview him while he holds the airplane, and then fly it. And they're going to fly these drones along with the airplane and film it, aerial record it.
Beautiful.
And then next year, I believe it's next year, Sam Champs are in Muncie again. We'll take it to Muncie. I'll probably make up the demo flights. Then it will be donated to the museum. Because Dad was an RC pioneer. And what you see behind you there, Sparky, on the floor.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's the original.
Escapement.
Anyway, that's the receiver. That was a receiver that was in it. And this is a transmitter. My dad's an amateur ham. He designed and built this transmitter. And this is the key, which plugged into the face here. And I don't know if you can see it, but that's the first AMA RC pattern. You can pass that around, the guys can see it. And that was the right, that's a right turn, and that would be one pulse out of the transmitter. And so it would trip the escapement and it would turn right. In this case, we flew it with a button too. Left caused 2 pulses, and it would go kick to the right and then to the left. And then 1, 2, 3, and he had an engine cut off that he had invented. And what it was an air bleed into the fuel line. And I've got it here. It's a little relay, and on the 3rd pulse, it would pop this. The relay would pull open, and it would bleed air into the fuel system and shut it off. The Dad was quite an innovator. Built so much of his own stuff. And
Well, guys, thanks for joining us on the internet here. We've been over Randy Ryan's. This is Detroit, Michigan. And we're down for the signal seekers. And we just lost the signal for a second. I got to close it up yet. Well, till we see you again, I want to thank you guys for watching the broadcast. Till we see you again, fair winds, tight lines. See ya!
All right, you want crude?